Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the number one most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/pod.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
It's just a great conference that is at a point right now where I think clearly the best group of five conference in the country.
The state of Sunbelt football is the strongest in our history.
And we got to continue to showcase what our league is about.
This league is insane.
Yeah, it might be like one of those 8 wonders of the world.
And you can see just what a great group of five conference it really is.
It's a big deal.
Boy, life is looking pretty good in the Sun Belt these days.
Good evening, and this is another edition of FunBelt Podcast, sort of a midweek edition of FunBelt Podcast because
You missed me, Jeremy. That's why.
What?
Because you missed me.
No, it's not because I missed you. I just saw you yesterday. Yeah, actually, once is enough. One dose of Tibbs a week is quite enough. But I'm risking this overdose of Tibbs because we've got so much action going on in the Sun Belt right now. It's maybe more action than we've seen in 15 years. And what I'm talking about is Sun Belt expansion, Sun Belt entropy, Sun Belt explosion, what we have right now. And the first guys to get on board, that, we had these rumors that all these guys were going to come on board, Tibbs. First people on board, they didn't even wait. They didn't say, we're going to wait for the other guys. We're going to do it right away. The first people on board was Southern Miss, which made everybody in the Sun Belt West excited because everybody has a little beef with Southern Miss, or at least a little friendly beef with Southern Miss. There's some heated beef with Southern Miss, and then there's some frenemy beef with Southern Miss. But everybody wants a little piece of Southern Miss, and that's why we're so glad to have them on board. Tonight we have Heath Hinton from Big Gold Nation, a rival site that I want everybody to check out, especially in our Sunbelt audience. Heath, welcome to the show. Welcome to the conference. Welcome to welcome to everything that's good.
Hey, man, I really appreciate being on, and you're right, man. It's already a lot better on this end, getting out of the prison that was Conference USA. We've got another year and a half in it, but just to get out of the prison is great, and move on to Sunbelt, which is something that the Southern Miss faithful been wanting to do for a while now, and it just fits. The schools fit, the type of schools, the towns, the location, everything is just a perfect fit with the Sunbelt. And for me, I can say that for Southern Miss, we're glad to be in it.
Here in the Sunbelt, the air is fresher. The food tastes better. The women will talk to you if you're polite. That's all I got to say about the Sun Belt. Actually, you know what? Here's what's kind of funny, Heath, is back maybe 10 years ago when Conference USA was picking up all these Sun Belt teams, we were all a little jealous. I think we all wanted to be. We didn't want to be left out of that, and the guys that were left out were a little bit upset. Like, what's wrong with us? Why couldn't we make that cut? So to see it come back around is a little bit. It's a little bit astonishing, but it's also a little bit of karma. So we're happy with that. But see, Southern Miss has already sort of seeded a rivalry with a couple Sunbelt programs. Who do you feel like is your biggest Sunbelt rival right now?
Right now, I'm going to say, just because of the distance, it only being, an hour and a half on bad traffic, is South Alabama. I mean, it's right down the road. Hit 98, you're at either place. That's a good one. I'm going to say Monroe seems to can be a really good one. Troy, a lot of that has to do with the turnover from administration.
Sure.
Of course, Jeremy McClain was at Troy. He's at Southern Miss. Their current AD was at Southern Miss. So the head coach for the football team was the offensive coordinator at Southern Miss. So there's a lot of cross, I guess, not want to say cross contamination, but there's a lot of cross.
Cross
connections. There's cross connections there. So that one is, Louisiana Lafayette played them a lot in the past. That could be a really good rivalry. Look, for Southern Miss, you got to understand, we're going from a conference that had two schools within a 400-mile radius of Southern Miss to a division that has 5. Let that sink in.
I am looking at a map. Heath, I am looking at a map right now. And you're smack in the middle between ULM, the Cajuns, South Alabama, and then Troy's not that far away. You're like in the center of the cyclone of rivalry now that you're in the Sun Belt.
The city's called, Hattiesburg's always been known as the hub city because all roads kind of go to Mobile, you can go to New Orleans, you can go to Jackson, you can go to Tuscaloosa, Birmingham. So it's always been known as the hub city. So I guess that kind of fits the description of the city a little bit. But one thing that's going to be great is you were talking about, the roles being reversed a little bit from back in the day when Southern Miss. I think one thing that the Southern Miss aspect of things is leadership. And not from a school. I think school leadership's great. I'm talking from a conference. I think you've seen what really good conference leadership does for a conference. When what you've seen is where the roles have reversed. From the Sun Belt to Conference USA, it's leadership. And that's something that I don't want to be mean, but the Conference USA has probably kind of been lacking here recently in a long time. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons schools being in the Sun Belt, schools being in a place where they're not a big populated area. Not that Atlanta and Mobile and maybe Lafayette, Monroe are not bigger cities, but they were able to stay in the conference. And a term I like to use, marinate. They were able just to stay in there and kind of battle on each other, build off of each other, strong leadership, and you've seen the conference grow. And I think that's what the leadership at Conference USA has still yet to figure out going forward. So major props to the Sun Belt for that.
So tell us, what are we getting, though, with Southern Miss? Tell us some of y'all's traditions. I think everyone knows Brett Favre, but that's as far as probably most people know about
You're
Southern
probably
Miss.
tired of hearing about Brett Favre.
Oh, yeah. You're getting a very, not to talk about Brett too much or Ray Guy, who both are in the Hall of Fame. I mean, the award's named after Ray Guy, former punter at Southern Miss. By the way, just a little tidbit for Sunbelt fans out there. Ray Guy was also a pitcher who had a 92-mile-an-hour plus fastball back in the day. He could have played pro baseball. He was one of the best athletes ever. Ray Guy, no kidding. But you're talking about Southern Miss, you're talking about we're not going to be as big a fan base as maybe Ole Miss or Mississippi State, but a very devoted fan base. You're going to get a legacy, a school that's had success. I mean, in the past, since Jeff Bauer, I guess 96, whatever that is, to 2021, I mean, if you think about it, they've only had 5 losing seasons in football, and I'm counting this year. That's pretty impressive. 6, I'm sorry, counting this year. It's a continued success. I think the football team on its way back. It's not having a good year, but it had to rebuild, and basketball is getting better. You're getting a really high quality baseball program. That's what's going to be fun. I'm not going to lie. Southern Miss baseball is a top 30 baseball program in America. The Pete is a blast to go to. The right field roofs. Please come and visit and hang out there. You'll be able to enjoy a meal and a beverage of your choosing, probably whatever you want to choose out there, to be honest with you.
Nice.
It's just a lot of fun. A community that loves the Eagles, and Hattiesburg is a great town. It is a lot of fun. Downtown area. It not far from the casinos, not far from New Orleans. It's just a great place to visit and a great school.
Jeremy, we have in Sunbelt realignment, we have some schools still on the outside trying to creep in.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
And we have one of them here with us. Tom Bragg from Herd 24/7 joins us to preview the Thundering Herd and how excited they are to maybe, asterisk, be joining the Sunbelt Conference.
Yeah,
Welcome
because that's still rumor and conjecture. Am I correct there? Because Southern Miss, they put their names on the bottom line there. Where's Marshall? Where are these guys?
Well, the thing that's always been kind of, I don't want to say contentious, but it's always been something worth pointing out since realignment got rolling with Oklahoma and Texas, how many ever weeks or months ago it's been now, is that Marshall is in the middle of a search for a new school president and currently has an interim athletic director. The Board of Governors has been interviewing presidential candidates. In fact, when everything was breaking last week and things were kind of crazy, you weren't hearing a whole lot from the administration side at school because they were busy with the presidential candidate interviews. Now, this Thursday, tomorrow morning, the Board of Governors is meeting and is naming the new president. And the chairman of the Board of Governors, a gentleman named Patrick Farrell, has said that no decision would be officially made until the new president was kind of approved by the board and in the know and kind of brought into the fold. And just in talking with the people behind the scenes at Marshall, working the sources, working the phones, doing the old journalist thing, it really seems like it's heading toward the Sun Belt, but they've really played their cards pretty close to the chest on this one. I would be surprised if it wasn't the Sun Belt at this point. We kind of see what's happening with Conference USA sort of crumbling in the wake of all these teams leaving. But yeah, it's not a done deal yet, but I would be very surprised if it wasn't a done deal very soon for Marshall.
Tom, first of all, I hope that it is a done deal for Marshall, that you guys are really
a whole lot of people in Huntington too, buddy.
But what Marshall brings to the table too is, one, you have like an instant rivalry, an instant national known rivalry with Appalachian State now. That game that that Marshall had with Appalachian State earlier this year was just a fun game to watch. You know, both of you guys did a good job of filling up the stadium. Just hats off to both of you guys for that. But we're just talking to Heath about what Southern Miss brings to the table outside of football, because we talk about football a lot, and that's what generates money. And Heath was talking about what a great baseball team that Southern Miss brings. But from what I understand, Marshall brings a really hot soccer team to the mix.
Yeah, you know, that Division I NCAA national champions last year, ranked number 2 in the country this week. They have been on fire. They really found lightning in a bottle with their head coach, a guy named Chris Grassi. He was very successful locally here in West Virginia on the Division II level, got the University of Charleston to a couple of national championship games, got hired by Marshall, and the guy who took over for him won a couple of national championships at UC. He's the coach at WVU now. So they've been building West Virginia into this kind of college soccer state recently, and it's really been spearheaded by Marshall. It's interesting with the Sun Belt, though, with no men's soccer officially right now. You look at what Marshall's dealing with in Conference USA, there's a lot of teams that have come from leagues that don't sponsors soccer. Coastal Carolina is new in Conference USA soccer this year. University of Kentucky, University of South Carolina. Those are all Conference USA soccer teams. It's a very, very good soccer conference. It would be interesting what move Marshall would have to make, or what move maybe the Sun Belt might make to reinstate soccer with such a powerhouse coming in. But other than soccer, the men's basketball team has been as good as it's been in 30 years since Dan D'Antoni took over the job. Won Conference USA in 2014 with that really good John Elmore team. Has been consistently among the top half, the top third of Conference USA. Haven't been winning league titles and going to NCAA tournaments, but that's a competitive team. That's a fun team. And Marshall fans, you hear a lot about the Marshall fans, how well they travel for football, this and that, but that's a very good basketball fan base too, that I think would really come right in and be a player in the Sun Belt.
You mentioned men's soccer though, and Heath, you were at that press conference yesterday when Southern Miss was officially announced. They were deer in headlights when somebody asked about the beach volleyball with programs that had just joined Conference USA for beach volleyball. And I think somebody had also asked about men's soccer or something like that. And they were just deer in headlights, like, oh my God. What was kind of your take from that there, Heath?
Well, I know like Southern Miss only has women's soccer. So I think what they're looking at, and also with the beach volleyball, and, maybe staying in Conference USA. I think Conference USA wants all the schools they can get. So I don't know if they can be choosy on that end, especially when they're bringing in FCS schools that probably don't have that. So I would think that probably I don't know, Tom may know more about this, but I would think that they would all stay in Conference USA if the Sun Belt doesn't, constitute putting those sports into the conference. Have y'all heard any talk on that? If there's anything, any buzz?
I wouldn't be surprised from Marshall's standpoint if, as this search for the school president has kind of bought them some time, that's kind of why they haven't gone out of their way to lean either way, because that soccer possibility staying in Conference USA, I don't think they necessarily want to burn any more bridges than they're going to have to burn getting out of town for football and the other sports. But as far as the Sun Belt, I haven't heard anything on our end. I wouldn't know.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the model that a lot of the non-revenue sports you're going to see probably go to, that your big four, baseball, men's, women's basketball, baseball, all of those are going to be in a conference. And in our case, the Sun Belt. But then you might have, your tennis team that has a regional draw, and maybe they're in the Southland Conference. Maybe they're in a Conference USA for, women's soccer or whatever. I think that's just the future and the way that we're going to see sports kind of shake out, that you're really only going to have those big core sports in a true conference affiliation.
Unless the TV networks are willing to pay for it, I could see absolutely that playing out, because you mentioned those core sports. That's what they're paying for right now. They're not paying for soccer. They're not paying for beach volleyball. They're paying for football. They're paying for basketball, paying a little less for women's basketball and baseball. But those are the four, I think, right now that are really driving the majority of this.
Don't tell Jeremy that, because Arkansas State is like the bowling powerhouse.
Yeah, I was going to ask if either one of you, does Marshall or Southern Miss bring bowling to the table? Because we're looking for some bowling partners.
No, but we can run it past the administration, though. I wouldn't be against that. That would be cool.
I appreciate that.
It seems I would like to see bowling, but it also seems a lot of the high schools in the area, and I think maybe Southern Miss started this. There's a bass fishing competition stuff going on. I'm all for that. I don't know about you guys, but nothing better than spending a day out at the lake on the boat.
That seems like a ULM thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Marshall's got some. I'm not sure what level they compete at, but they've got some fishing competition guys on campus. I'm sure you get some old West Virginia boys out in a boat and start telling them there's a trophy at the end of it. They're in, man. Get that sponsored by the league, and they're in.
I mean, Hampton Roads is on the water. I'm sure they got a couple of boats they can throw out there. Appalachian State. You guys were talking something fun. I'm interested to see what's going to happen. Appalachian State calls their stadium the Rock. Southern Miss has called their stadium the Rock. That's going to be a little bit of fun between the fan bases as well.
So you're going to have like some kind of
rock,
Yeah, you need some kind of rock trophy. Whoever wins to call themselves the Rock.
The Rock rivalry or something. I don't know, but that's a potential. it's just something kind of interesting. And, having Marshall potentially joining the Sun Belt, that makes so much of sense. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. It's going to make the conference deeper, man. It's just, I think I can speak for Tom on this. Tom, I might not can, but the leadership is going to be so nice to be in a conference with strong leadership.
Well, we're glad to hear you say that about Keith Gill, because Keith Gill's a friend of our show. But before you answer that, Tom, I did want to ask you a question a little bit about CUSA.
Sure.
Right now, it looks like about 5 programs are going to kind of be left behind. And they're not bad programs by any stretch of the means.
Well, not all of them.
Well, yes, it depends on how much hatred in your heart you have for some of these guys. But do you feel like those guys are going to be in good shape coming out of this? Are they going to find other homes? Or is CUSA, do you think, is going to try to do kind of what Sunbelt had to do 10 years ago, which was sort of build with FBS teams and come out on top that way?
Any of the teams that are getting left behind in Conference USA right now are not in a great spot. Some are in worse spots than other. UTEP is kind of out on an island in West Texas by itself, and reports out that the Mountain West had talked about potential expansion teams and specifically said not UTEP though. So bad news for them out there. FIU kind of on the same thing on the eastern flank with FAU going off to the American and the previous raids on Conference USA that kind of cleared the other Florida schools out. They're kind of on their own down there. Florida's not a bad spot to be, but what league do you play in if you're not in Conference USA and you're not in the Sun Belt? If you're FIU, it would be a tough road to hoe as an independent. They wouldn't drive a big dollar figure to try to get any sort of independent TV deal. It would be tough. Now, La Tech, Middle Tennessee, Western Kentucky, I think those athletic programs are in much better spots, both with their geography playing a part in that and the strength of their programs. Since when all of this went down, one of the big things that WKU was thumping their chest about it when kind of promoting themselves is, look, since we've been in Conference USA across all sports, we've won twice as many league championships as any other school. And it's true. They've been a very good football team, a very good basketball team. And you start looking at volleyball, women's basketball, on down the line. That's a solid athletic program. They would be a solid ad for any league. And you start looking around at the geography and you think, well, maybe if the MAC wants to open things up and kind of expand a little more south than historically they've wanted to go, I think that would be a good spot, particularly for Western and maybe Middle Tennessee. La Tech, it's kind of in a weird spot. It wouldn't be a real natural fit in the MAC. So I think that would be a stretch, but I would say Western and Middle are in much better spots than the other three. La Tech's probably in a better spot than UTEP and FIU, but it's not in a great spot either.
Heath, who are you going to miss the most, man?
Honestly, I'm going to miss La Tech just because of the rivalry. Being as close as it was. I mean, we didn't have many schools close to Southern Miss, and that was one of them in Conference USA. So I think that's going to be the one school that you're going to miss. Western Kentucky is just hard to get to. That's a hard place to get to. If you ever tried to travel to
Wait until you try to get to Boone.
I trust me. I don't know if it can be any harder than Western Kentucky. You almost have to go to Nashville, go somewhere. I mean, it's crazy. Maybe not being able to go to Florida is not that great because ain't nothing like Miami, I guess. But I'm going to miss Louisiana Tech most of all. Just got friends over there and the rivalry that was built. And that's going to be tough. So hopefully they'll be able to keep that rivalry and out of conference. But we'll see.
So ironic, since it was Southern Miss, at least per the Tech fans, that kept them out of the Sun Belt Conference.
I had nothing. I'm sorry to say that had nothing to do with it. This is a dog eat dog world. This is kind of like, you've got to strike while the iron is hot, and Southern Miss was ready to get out of Conference USA. You got to understand, Southern Miss is a founding member of Conference USA. We've seen that thing. We've seen it take off, plateau, and we've seen it go down for a long time now. And when you're a founding member and you've been there so long, you know what? It's time to get out. And nothing against Louisiana Tech, but Southern wasn't trying to keep them out. Southern was just looking out for number one.
This is for
And at this point, that's what you had to do.
This is for Tom or Heath. Maybe both of you guys can take a crack at this. What was it about CUSA that at some point you looked at and said, we got to get out of this?
I'll start. Number one, the TV deal. You've got to have 5 different streaming subscriptions, not just streaming websites, 5 different streaming subscriptions, a Facebook login to get into there's games on Facebook. They've just made it so incredibly hard for the average fan, not nerds like me that are perpetually online, but for the average fan, for my grandma. Gosh, before my grandma passed away a couple years ago, when it came time to be like, well, what channel's the Marshall game on? You say, well, Meemaw, it's not on a channel, it's on a computer screen. Here, I'll set it up for you. And it's just, and that's a lot of the people that support Marshall. I'm not saying they have an old fan base, but there's a lot of old folks around here that would really like to watch Marshall, and they couldn't do it. And people like me, peers my age, we heard about it. You heard about it at Thanksgiving. You heard about it at all the holidays. Why can't we watch the Herd? It was worse than when Marshall took the names off the backs of their jerseys. I heard about that one forever. I don't know who anyone is, but the TV deal, number one, I think was the big red flag. This most recent one, that's one part of it is that it's difficult and kind of expensive, but it's not making the teams any money. They, when Marshall joined Conference USA, they left the MAC and it was kind of a cash grab. There was a much better TV deal. There was a lot more money on the table for you to turn around and put into your program. And, Heath can attest, he's been with Southern Miss through all this. It's just not what it used to be. Now, the situation in the Sun Belt in that aspect is, equal or better, depending on, how it gets sliced up when the new schools come in. But you look at the potential exposure. You look at that App State Coastal game a few weeks ago that was on ESPN. You look at the App State Marshall game that was on ESPN. When App State and Marshall played in Huntington, that's a Marshall home game. And one of the very few fortunate things about the pandemic season in 2020 is that game got bumped to big CBS, so that was national TV. If it wasn't for that, that was stuck in the 800 level channel purgatory of the CBS Sports Network, which is
it was
the best
game too.
And it was a really good game. But that's the best option that you have in Conference USA, and it's just not one that's doing these teams any favors as far as branding, as far as getting your name out there on a national level. It hurts you in recruiting to some degree. I guess it's debatable. Different schools have handled that better than others, but on the whole, it's not a good thing for recruiting if the recruits don't know how to watch you on TV when they can just flip on ESPN and catch a Coastal game or an App State game or an Arkansas State game or an East Carolina game or a Tulane game or one of the American teams, because that's kind of the level that you're battling with for a lot of those kids. So just that's when you start looking around and go, okay, what are they really doing here? Why are the people in charge continuing to make poor decision after poor decision after poor decision that keep negatively affecting not just one school, not just a couple schools, but all of the schools? And it's just the bottom kind of fell out of this thing. When Oklahoma and Texas went, I wrote a thing for our website over at Herd 247 that was just like, look, I don't know what's going to happen, but every time these dominoes start falling in realignment, it comes to Conference USA at some point. And the teams that start preparing now, that start coming up with options for when the day comes, are going to be the ones that come out better in the end of this. And you're seeing that play out now, I think, at least.
So we've already officially landed Southern Miss. Today we officially landed Old Dominion. What can you tell us about that school?
Oh, Old Dominion is great endowment, great, nice facilities, brand new football facility they built. Basketball arena is really nice.
Really good basketball team too. Football team's on the way. Kind of, they have their good years, they have their bad years, but that's consistently a very good basketball program too. Baseball too. It's a pretty good baseball school.
Baseball is really good. It's going to add to the Sun Belt, which I think is the baseball in the Sun Belt is going to be so much fun in a couple of years.
Yeah,
that's going to be a lively.
Marshall does not bring a lot to the table in that aspect, but Marshall's
new baseball stadium.
Yeah, they're working on the new baseball stadium. It's going to be a real nice thing. They're going to actually get to play in Huntington. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the deal they had, but they were playing in a minor league stadium 40 minutes from campus, actually closer to where it was 10 minutes from where I live now. So it was great when I was trying to cover baseball. But as far as bringing recruits in and having that kind of buzz on campus, Marshall hasn't had that. But hopefully the new stadium would bring that. Sorry, I interrupted you there about Old Dominion.
No, you're fine. And I totally agree. Old Dominion's going to be a great and it also brings a regional rival there for Marshall. if they join, and West Virginia, and James Madison to help add to that and keep the East more regional to a certain extent, like the West. I think it's a great ad. I really do. And I think it's one of those things to where another school that kind of fits the outline of what a Sunbelt school is. It's not that.
I'd agree with that. I think, as far as culture, as far as like institutions, I think Old Dominion will fit much better in the Sun Belt than it ever did in Conference USA. I thought they were always a weird fit in Conference USA. Nothing against the school. I like the school, I like the program, but it didn't feel like the right fit. And that's kind of at first with the not the old Conference USA, but kind of that first big realignment with CUSA when Marshall came in with like Central Florida, UTEP, and all those schools first joined. There was enough new schools that it kind of felt like, okay, we're all in this together. But as it's kind of fragmented and broken over the last 15 years, it wasn't a good fit for Marshall anymore either.
You guys were talking about that TV deal or the broadcast. It's not even TV deal. Let's call it.
Yeah.
And that means that's not just for CSA. That's everybody. Everybody's kind of streaming now and finding different ways to put out that content. I'd watched a game on Twitter a couple of times. It was just there. I did at the time. I did kind of appreciate some of what USA was doing. It was like, okay, they're looking at different platforms to try to bring football. I don't know if it worked. I guess it didn't. It made everybody at CSA pissed.
The problem with that was using Facebook, using Twitter, different platforms like that. They didn't bring any money to the table.
Right.
So
if you're going to think outside the box, that's great. But at the end of the day, they didn't make any money off of it.
$140,000 per school for a TV contract in Conference USA. That's what it costs to send the football team on 2 road trips.
Yep.
Okay. Let's just be honest right now. It's terrible. And that's what happens when you try to, create new avenues to watch sporting events. It's great, but they don't bring any money to the table when you do it.
So the one question I had, because both of you guys are living in sort of recruiting bill 24/7 and rivals, are you seeing any buzz recruiting wise amongst some of the recruits that are looking at Southern Miss or the Thundering Herd, or is it still kind of early in the process? The recruits aren't really getting it yet.
I think for the Marshall guys, it's still kind of early. Charles Huff comes in. This is his first year as the head coach. He was the 24/7 National Recruiter of the Year at Alabama before he came in. He's the guy that recruited Saquon Barkley at Penn State. He's the guy that was the running backs coach for Najee Harris at Alabama last year. So he came in like as a hard line, I'm going to be a recruiting guy and build this roster up. And kind of comparatively to how Marshall and a lot of teams on the G5 level like to recruit, where you sort of get to about this time in the year, and that's when you see kids start to commit because the Power 5 or the Dream School offers never come or fall through, or you kind of get lost in the wayside. Huff didn't do that. Huff we had a guy commit a 3-star offensive lineman kid named Jalen Slappy from Ohio committed yesterday. He is the 23rd commit in Marshall's recruiting class right now. I'd have to check the updated things. If it's not the most in the country, it's right there with I think Penn State and UCLA both have a ton of kids right now. So the trick was always going to be, okay, Huff got him in the boat. Now he's got to keep him there through signing day. And just the little bit that I've talked to some of the kids, I think that a move to the Sun Belt, they would be excited about. I think that's kind of the message that they're getting behind the scenes is, hey, this is where it's going. This is where we're heading. The other side of that, though, if for some reason, and worst case scenario, the rug gets pulled out from under this and Marshall's got to stay in Conference USA, I don't think the recruits are going to like it. I know the fans are going to hate it. It would be disaster for Marshall if this fell through. But that's not the indication I've been getting. It's, not a zero possibility, but it's a lot closer to zero than it is to, 10, I would say even.
Well, we got 2 years to get them on board. If not, I don't feel that it's a lost cause, even if it's like you said, the rug kind of gets pulled out from under you right now. I still feel like you can still rebound maybe at the first of the year and
sure
make it happen.
Sure. And I think one thing I've been hearing all along, and I don't know what the people on the Sunbelt side have been saying behind the scenes, but the people I've been talking to kind of in and around this process at Marshall, one thing they've hammered home is that Marshall has great options. They feel good about those options, and the Sunbelt is patient. They're not in a big rush to get this done. They, collectively, there's a group of university presidents and administrators there in the Sunbelt. And they kind of understand, Marshall's got to get its house in order. They've got this presidential search going on right now. They've got an interim AD now, but the interim AD, he's been at Marshall for 20 years. He's been the number 2 guy for the last 2 ADs. When Mike Hamrick retired at the end of last year, it kind of caught some people by surprise. So they just slid this guy Jeff O'Malley in, and it's been like having a full-time AD. If they wanted to give him the job, I don't think anybody in Huntington would argue with that. And what better line on a resume when you're going to get that job than, hey, I saved us from purgatory in CUSA. You should probably put me on full time right now.
I was speaking with Jeremy McLean the other day and told him that the AD at Southern Miss, and told him, said, they might build a statue out there for you and Rodney Bennett after the announcement yesterday, because people have been wanting to get out of Conference USA so bad. You were talking about recruiting, and I'm gonna tell you, for Southern Miss, it's a bonus. Look, where Southern Miss is located, as I talked about the hub city, when you're smack dab in the middle of, you've got Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Alabama, I would call them University of Alabama at Tuscaloosa, and LSU. It's hard to recruit anyway, but when you recruit kids when you're not on TV, and you can tell them, hey, when you come here, you're going to start being on ESPN on Wednesday nights. You're going to start being on ESPN too. It has brought a little excitement for Southern Miss. Southern Miss needs all the excitement they can get when you're right dab in that middle. And right now they're holding pretty strong. I think they were second in Conference USA behind Marshall, according to us. So,
this class of 2022, that's what we've had on the 24/7 side too, going back to like June when it all sort of opened up. Marshall number 1, Southern Miss number 2, and everybody else way further behind. So that's another thing. If you're the Sunbelt schools, is I know Southern Miss has been down lately, and Marshall's going through a coaching change and all, but you're bringing in some teams that get out there and compete on the field and off the field for these guys. I think it's going to be really fun to see that sort of dynamic develop as teams like Marshall and App State and Coastal are all going after kind of kids from the same region, Old Dominion, James Madison. So it's going to be a lot more fun than Marshall's going against guys from the MAC and maybe some small schools from 1AA's, Midwest, Texas, and stuff like that. I think you're going to see a lot more regional recruiting rivalries, and that's going to be fun. I think for me at least. I don't know about you guys down there in the South. I know recruiting's a little more cutthroat down there, but it's going to be fun. I think though.
Hey, I don't know if you know this, and Dusty, I don't know if you told them, but you do know that once you enter Sunbelt, the newbies have to give their 6 best recruits to Sunbelt schools. You know that, right?
And Arkansas State and ULM are founding members. So
yeah. So we'll get a pick of
ULM's already got one of Southern Miss's. That's Chandler Rogers, who used to be quarterback at Southern Miss, who is doing a really good job for you guys right now. So don't we get a buy in that rule because of that?
Next year, yes.
Well, we sent some West Virginia natives down there to Monroe in Terry Bowden and Rich Rodriguez, so we'll just call it even after that.
Yeah, it's been crazy watching the Warhawks, and especially you knew that it was going to be a rebuilding year, but light years ahead where I would have thought the Warhawks would have been this year. But we're here to talk about Marshall and Southern Miss. What are the game day traditions that y'all have? I love stadiums. I love traditions. As much as Ben, as a Georgia State guy, I love Georgia Southern and how tradition rich they are. Everything has its own meaning. They have their own pregame rituals and everything else. Tell us about y'all's pregame rituals and kind of that history that y'all have.
We start off. I mean, you have the Eagle Walk. Tailgating at Southern Miss is outstanding. Look, you're in the middle of the South. Everybody can cook. Everybody's overweight. No, I'm just joking. But everybody's out there, having a good time, hanging out, tailgating. You have Eagle Walk a couple hours before the game. You're always going to have around 25,000 people at a Southern Miss game, even if they're not doing well. It's a fantastic environment, as I said, for tailgating. You always have concerts. Adam Doliak, country music guy, performed this year before one of the games. So you're always going to have something fun at Southern Miss. They have a great area where they have the food trucks set up. I mean, it's a fun environment. The Rock's a great place to watch a game. And, it's a lot of fun. The environment there is great.
Marshall's pretty similar. They got a thing they call the Thunder Walk, where Huntington it's a college town, but it's set up on a real nice flat grid. I know you don't think about that in West Virginia, but it sits right up on the border with Ohio and Kentucky, kind of in the valley. So it's nice and flat in Huntington. So they pull the buses up to the corner of the stadium. Team gets out, band, cheerleaders, all that stuff, and they're in there. Coaches are in their suits, the guys are in their sweatsuits. They walk through the crowd, through the big tailgate crowd outside, and hang out with the fans a little bit on their way in. They've been doing some new stuff this year. They've blocked off the street directly outside of the stadium, where it was kind of like the pass-through street, but they blocked it off. Food trucks, big stage setup. They have musical acts. They do a portion of the pregame local radio show, goes on live up there on the thing. Inside the stadium, Marshall always comes out to, they've got at Virginia Tech, they do Enter Sandman. Marshall does Thunderstruck by AC/DC when they come out, and people get pretty rowdy for that. They haven't done it the last couple of years, but they used to have a guy from the local Harley shop that would fix up a Harley to look like a mean-ass buffalo and have Marco, the mascot, riding on the back of it as they shot off fireworks and Thunderstruck was playing. That was always, I loved that when I was a kid going to the games. And yeah, the same thing, tailgating in Huntington, it's not the South, but man, Huntington is a party town. Everybody knows how to eat, drink, have a good time. There's, bars, restaurants, and everything right in the little neighborhood where the stadium is. Campus, it's right on the edge of campus. It's just a little beautiful corner of the world to go watch a football game on a Saturday afternoon. And if it is the Sun Belt, you talked about those weeknight games. I'd be looking forward to that, because when Marshall was in the MAC, they were at the height of kind of their recognition nationally, because they were playing on Wednesday and Thursday, and sometimes Tuesdays and Fridays every week, and it didn't hurt that they had guys like Chad Pennington and Randy Moss and Byron Leftwich running around for them. But that's part of the deal. You get guys, really good quarterbacks out of Washington D.C. like Byron Leftwich, because they know who you are, because you've been playing on Tuesdays, and they get to watch. They can flip on ESPN and watch you. They don't have to open up their Facebook page and hope they don't get a text message that slows the broadcast of the game down. I'm sorry to keep harping on that, but man, it sticks on me with that TV stuff.
Down here in South Mississippi, when you have to take your tablet and hold it a certain way to make sure you get the wireless signal when you're not out, it's crazy. But, you were talking about, I think the one thing Sunbelt fans really look forward to at Southern Miss is not football's great, but baseball, the atmosphere at the Peak. That's a lot of fun to me. Right field roost. That's the one place that I would say, if you get a chance to come visit. There's a little Bruin rivalry with Lafayette right now. If you didn't see the games last year, you'll know what I'm talking about. Just go look them up. That's where a lot of fun is. So I would tell people from Sunbelt, fans of Sunbelt, make sure to get to a Southern Miss baseball event.
If they get soccer going again in the Sun Belt, absolutely come to Huntington for a soccer game. That was the best party they've had in town all year. They played West Virginia, kind of the in-state rivals in Huntington. I think there was more than 4,000 people there. They were both top 10 ranked teams at the time. It was on a Friday night before the home game against East Carolina on Saturday afternoon. It was rocking. That was fun. If Sunbelt starts sponsoring men's soccer again, that would be my advice. Come to Huntington for a football game, but try to catch one of those ones that's got a soccer game on Friday night, because that is a lot of fun down there.
Dusty and I, we're really tight with Keith Gill. We could probably make something happen, don't you think, Dusty? If we could just get him back on, and maybe we can get you guys on and you can make a pitch.
I'll cut you a deal. I'll talk to the Marshall people. Yeah. I'll talk to the Marshall people about volleyball. You talk to Gil about getting soccer added. We see this is going to work out. This is, if we can get it done, I wish the Marshall people could get it done as quickly as we just got that done.
What happened to our sports podcast? I mean, this became like Politico backdoors.
Oh yeah. We're more like a lobbying agency than we are a podcast. We change policy around here. That's.
Let me ask you guys a question, Sunbelt guys, right quick.
Sure.
What's the chance the Sunbelt's going to poach a couple of bowls off of Conference USA, going to 14 schools? That's going to mean more bowl games. Have you heard anything on that front?
here's if you look at the wording, they've kind of gone away from it being a Sun Belt, Conference USA, American, and it'll just say Group of 5 bowl game. But how many times can you play a MAC team in a bowl? Because the MAC might not have enough bowl eligible teams. The Sun Belt might not have enough bowl eligible teams. So the bigger question is if Conference USA goes by the wayside, what happens to those slots? Are we looking at the old days? Like I remember the first year of the Sun Belt, North Texas was 5-6 and representing as conference champs in the New Orleans Bowl. Do we go back to that time or not?
I think that when you're talking about automatic bids, if Conference USA was to go away, I was told that those bids would go to a Power 5. They're not going to come back. That's why Conference USA still has a little bit of value on the baseball, basketball end. When it comes to football, I don't know how they're going to do it, but you got a conference that maybe is going to have 8 teams, and what they got 7 bowl tie-ins. There's no way they're going to be able to fill those bowl tie-ins with 8 teams. Just no way. I don't see it happening if they do. So we'll see what happens. I think that there's going to have to be some wording changed in the bowl structure about Group of 5. And at that point, if you're in the Sun Belt and you think you're in a better Group of 5 conference than even the AAC at that point, you deserve more bowl bids. That's going to be interesting going forward, see what they do.
And let's remember who owns and runs most of the bowls. It's our friends down in Orlando with the Mouse Ears. And, that if they want to get it done, I'm sure they're probably not going to do anything to harm the Sun Belt, certainly at the behest of Conference USA that has basically no dealings with them. Some, but not a whole lot. The bowl thing, that kind of jogged my memory. You asked me earlier, what were the big red flags, the moments that you kind of saw the writing on the wall for Conference USA. When Conference USA lost the Liberty Bowl as the automatic conference champion goes to the Liberty Bowl every year, that felt like you were playing towards something every year. The Liberty Bowl had a little stroke to it, had a little gravitas. And once that was out the door, it's like, okay, well, the champion goes to, or where are they going this year? Are they going to the Bahamas? Are they going to Shreveport? Are they going to play in the Rays baseball stadium down in Tampa? It just,
who knows?
Yeah, it was just, it kind of felt like, I mean, maybe it made the conference season feel a little more important for the conference schools, but as far as playing towards that goal, that bowl game at the end of the year, if you were a realist, you figured, okay, you're probably not getting in the playoff or the BCS or whatever it is that they're going to call it at the end of the year, but you can still go to the Liberty Bowl. You can still go play an SEC team and show them that, we can hang with you guys. And once that's off the table, again, just another thing, you start looking around and going, oh, what are we doing here? Why are we still doing this?
I guess that for years, man. We've been saying it for years in Hattiesburg. What are we doing here?
No, well, I am glad that you guys have come to us. Maybe not Marshall. Marshall may not be coming. We don't know. We assume they're coming. Yeah. We feel like, in fact, they made a map of the new Sunbelt footprint today, and I have kind of ghosted images of Marshall and JMU, but I know you guys are.
Yeah, I noticed there's a little corner of West Virginia that they included up there in the top part of that map, just so they probably don't have to recut it for the next one. So, but fingers crossed here in the Mountain State.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I know our time is coming to a close here, unless Thibodeau has a buttload of questions he wants to ask. But I do want to know this. I was kind of teasing Heath a little bit about Brett Favre. Do you ever get tired of hearing about Randy Moss, or are you just like, no. Let's bring on the Moss?
No, zero times do I get tired of hearing about Randy Moss. Now, as a journalist trying to run Randy Moss down and talk to him for kind of local feature stories, I get tired of dealing with having to find Randy Moss. He doesn't make it easy for you. But look, I'm from Charleston, which is the big city that's Randy Moss is from 5 minutes from there. I was 10 when Randy was a senior in high school, so he was a god to all the kids around here. And then I grew up in a Marshall family, and it fell through for Randy with Notre Dame. He goes down to Florida State, gets kicked out, got in trouble down there, and all of a sudden Randy Moss falls in our lap down at Marshall. And we all knew, it wasn't like he got to campus and everyone was like, who is this guy? We all knew from the second he signed up to go play at Marshall, because that Marshall team was already loaded. It had been known for several years that they were going to make the jump from 1AA to the MAC starting in the 97 season. So that 96 team that Moss walked into, that was stacked with recruits that they had been like, hey, we'll go win national championships in 1AA, and you'll be playing big boy D1 football by the time you're out of school here. So you added Moss to that team, and whoa, man. And, he goes on to be arguably one of the greatest receivers of all time in the NFL. People talk about getting mossed and don't even know who Randy Moss is now. He's become a verb in football.
Yeah.
It's awesome, man. We love us some Randy Moss in Huntington, man.
Well,
It's hard to get tired of watching those highlights. There's plenty of them too.
I just want to know when they're going to put a mural in the stadium of the Marshall football team carrying Byron Leftwich down the field. I just want a mural. I've been waiting to see a mural in Huntington, kind of like a touchdown Jesus type of deal.
Oh, that would be cool. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that idea before, but it turns out one of the offensive linemen that was carrying him, he stuck around in Huntington when he was done with school and done with football. He was a bartender down the street. I ended up becoming real good friends with him. I'm still friends with him to this day. His name's Joey Stepp. I'll run it by him. He's a school teacher here in West Virginia. He'll get a kick out of that. I'll tell him they should be a 30-foot tall painting of him in Huntington. The guys down in the Sun Belt want it.
Well, yeah, maybe Heath can go ahead and sketch you like a little mock-up.
Perfect.
I can do a stick man. I can do a stick man.
Look at our glorious stick figures. They're green. They're white.
This one's Leftwich.
Yeah.
We're gonna get Brett throwing a Hail Mary at Louisville. We'll get that put outside the stadium, maybe painted on the brick somewhere. And
now, does Brett ever show up in his Wrangler jeans?
Actually, I don't know if he shows up in his gunslingers or not. To be honest with you, I've never like asked him. I tell you a funny Brett Favre story. They were playing in Shreveport in a bowl, and Brett was walking out of the elevator, and I was getting on the elevator, and man, he was going to town on some chicken wings. I just looked at him. I said, "It must be good, buddy. They must be real good." And he just started laughing at me, but it was just kind of funny the way it was said. But yeah, he comes around a lot at sporting events. You'll see him. He makes an appearance every now and then. Yeah, he helps.
I'm just trying to picture him just coming out of an elevator with a big bucket of chicken wings, just going to town.
It was more like a bowl.
Oh, okay.
Hey, don't get me wrong; they were really good because I went up there and got some. They were from walk-ons, but it was just funny to see him coming out. Man, he must have been hungry because it was him and Deion Sanders behind each other talking. So
you didn't mention Deion Sanders. You're just like, oh yeah, it was just Brett Favre.
Well, no, Deion was there because
Deion Sanders was with him.
That was Florida State. Now you see Deion around here all the time because he's coaching at Jackson State down here recruiting.
Don't call him Deion.
You see Deion a pretty good bit.
Not to his face, at least.
Don't call him Deion.
No, you have to call him Coach Sanders. And as bad as I know the guy that happened to, that was kind of a.
Well,
I know him a little bit too. I felt bad for him that day.
Yeah, I felt bad for Nick. I was like, man,
you could call him Deion now because he's only got 1 foot that's working. So I mean, you could surely outrun him.
Yeah, like recovering from surgery, right?
How do you call Coach Hall? I'm like, Will, I don't know. It's not being mean or anything. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Maybe taking that a little to the extreme.
It's like last night when Jeremy referred to Carl Benson as Mr. Benson. I was like, whoa, that's like somebody's butler.
Yeah,
we have a heated. We have kind of a heated relationship with Carl Benson up at Jonesboro, Arkansas. So it was. I felt like I had to be a little bit more formal with him, but as the podcast went on, it got a little bit easier. I felt like we had become friends.
Does Jonesboro have like? Is it a Sam Walton type of deal?
No, that would be.
Y'all not Sam Walton people in Jonesboro.
No, that would be further out west with the University of Arkansas, which happens to be our hated enemy. So don't even mention those guys.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Unless you want to prod us into anger.
So you shop at Target, in other words.
Oh, if we can, yeah.
Y'all don't have a Target in Jonesboro.
Oh, we have a Target, but we also have like 6 Walmarts.
Wow.
Yeah, you can't get away from Walmart. Wow. It doesn't matter where you are in Arkansas. You can't walk outside without tripping over a Walmart. So,
just be like us down here, go real fancy and call it Target.
No, well, that's what we do. Yeah.
Call it Target.
Heath, Hinton, Tom, Bragg, welcome to the FunBelt Conference.
Well, not Tom. We don't welcome Tom yet.
Fingers crossed. When it's official, we'll come back on.
Yeah.
For a real
Hey,
party.
listen, Tom, we're going to have to edit you out of this whole segment.
It's going to be awkward though when you're like, "Hey, Tom," and then there's just no response.
Yeah, well, I don't. It would just have to be what it is. We don't have the licensing agreement, but yeah, if it falls through, Tom, we're totally editing you out of this podcast.
Fair enough.
A Heath Hinton podcast, but thanks for joining us tonight. I know that it's just kind of like we're trying to meet the new guys. You guys jumped aboard, and we really appreciate it. Tibbs, do you have any parting shots for these guys?
No, I'm glad that we will have another rival there with Southern Miss. I think that will develop into a nice little rivalry. I'm excited about going to Huntington. It's been a place that I've wanted to go check out a game, go check out the fountain, the whole "We Are" chant before games. I'm looking forward to it. I've also never been to a game at Southern Miss, so I will definitely be hitting up Hattiesburg at some point in the near future.
I've been to one. It's a good time. I can vouch for that awful one.
I've been to Marshall. It's a blast. Go to Huntington, definitely.
Come hungry. They'll feed you.
I've also been to a game in Jonesboro.
Oh, God. All right. That's it.
I tell you what's crazy, though, going to Huntington, and Tom might agree with me, when you go over the mountains and you make that, like, you have to go straight down to get on the airport.
Yeah.
That's like a roller coaster in itself.
Yeah, flying into Huntington is a little dicey, but once you get here, it's good times. I promise.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, you won't have any such problems in Jonesboro. It's nothing but good old Mississippi Delta. You'll see us about 300 miles before you even get there. So
we'll give you about 3 years.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us on the show. We hope to have you back real soon.
Definitely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Business owners meet Progressive Insurance. They make it easy to get discounts on commercial auto insurance and find coverages to grow with your business. Quote in as little as 7 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
This is a mini meditation guided by Bombas. Repeat after me. I'm comfy. I'm cozy. I have 0 blisters on my toes. And that's because I wear Bombas, the softest socks, underwear, and t-shirts that give back. One purchased equals one donated. Now go to bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/listen and use code LISTEN at checkout.